Hey guys, welcome back to the KJ Methods YouTube channel, where we are dedicating ourselves to getting 1,000 agents licensed by the end of 2025. If you've been watching along, you know that we have been doing a contracts test review. I started with contracts because it is the most important topic on the state exam and also in your real estate career. Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get updates when we upload a new video. Our next topic is going to be agency. But for right now, we have 5 videos for contracts. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 21, Mary attempts to purchase Janice's home, but the bank will not loan Mary the money. Mary and Janice enter into an agreement where Mary will pay Janice $1,200 per month for the home for a period of 20 years. But for that period, Mary will just have possession and equitable title in the property. This arrangement is called what? A, is this a land contract? B, contract for deed? C, installment sale agreement? Or D, all of the above? Well, some of you guys may have said A. Some of you guys may have said B. It really depends on where you're located. But if you recall, this is a form of seller financing, and we call it a land contract, a contract for deed, or an installment sale agreement. So the correct answer would be all of the above. Number 22. Maggie and Don enter into a contract where Don, as seller, inserts the clause next to the closing date, December 14th, 2022. Time is of the essence. Both parties sign. What does the addition of this clause mean? A, that Don is agreeing that he will close by December 14th, 2022. B, that all parties must meet each contract deadline by December 14th, 2022. C, that whoever fails to close on December 14th, 2022 is in breach. And then D, that the parties should shoot for a closing around December 14th, 2022. Well, if you remember, time is of the essence strictly means that whomever is not ready by that day is the person that is in breach. Now here, next to the closing date, we have put closing date, December 14th, 2022. Time is of the essence. So that is relating to the closing. In other words, whoever fails to close on that date is the loser. They are in breach of contract. So the correct answer here is C, Charlie. Number 23. Julius makes an offer to purchase a home from Peter. The parties negotiate for some time and they plan to put it all in writing on Friday. However, Peter dies on Thursday. So essentially, what is the effect of Peter's death? A, Peter's death will have no effect because they already negotiated the terms. B, Peter's death will terminate the negotiations, meaning that there is no contract. C, the promises can be enforced against Peter's heirs. And then D, the contract is not enforceable because it wasn't put in writing. So what do you think about this? They're negotiating back and forth. However, they haven't actually reduced it to writing yet. So prior to that time, they are not in a contract as of yet. They were going to do it on Friday, but Peter dies on Thursday. And so in this case, there's simply no contract and all of those negotiations are terminated. This gives us an opportunity also to talk about something else. Had they been in contract, then the answer would be different because the promises made would then be able to be enforced against Peter's heirs. So make sure you understand before you're in contract and once you're in contract. Number 24. Julius and Drew were about to enter into a contract. Drew threatened Julius by stating he would beat him up if he didn't sign the contract by 5 p.m. Julius wasn't sure about the terms of the contract, but he was afraid of Drew. So he decided to sign in order to avoid any further threats. Julius's contract is A, void due to the threats made. B, voidable due to the threats made. C, valid, but Julius may be able to get out of it later. D, unenforceable since it wasn't in writing. So what do you say here? This is an example of genuine assent. There was no genuine assent in this contract at all. He's essentially saying, I signed only because he made me sign. I didn't want to sign. And so that is going to be a voidable contract. Please remember that anything under genuine assent is going to be voidable. And so that means innocent misrepresentation, negligent misrepresentation, duress, menace, all of these things, negative fraud, all of those things are gonna result in a voidable contract. 25, Jovan is about to purchase a home from Nate. During the contract, the county informs Nate that it will be taking part of the property to build a playground for the adjacent school they are also building, but at a price well below the amount that Jovan is gonna purchase this property for. Jovan notes that he no longer even has to purchase the property because he doesn't want to be near a school. Nate sues Jovan for specific performance. What is the most probable result here? A, Jovan will be successful because the taking is a supervening illegality. B, Jovan will be successful because he wasn't informed of the school being built prior to entering into the contract. C, Nate, because the county is not taking the whole property, so Jovan still has to complete the sale. And D, Nate, if he can prove that this school is far enough away that it's not even going to affect Jovan to begin with. So let's take a look at this. Essentially, would you agree that Jovan and Nate entered into a contract for this whole property? And he wasn't going to get the whole thing. Why? Because before he got a chance to close, the state comes in or the county comes in and says they're taking a piece of that property. All right. So he's not going to get what he bargained for. Anytime something happens, you already have a contract, and something happens, a change in the law, right, that says now what you were going to do, you can no longer do. What were they going to do? Get the whole property. Now he can't get the whole property. He can only get a part of the property. That is referred to as a supervening illegality. In other words, something jumps in. I tell my students, Superman jumped in and changed the law, right? And so made what you were going to do now illegal or impossible to perform. So the act of the government taking the property by eminent domain was a supervening illegality, and so the answer here is A. 26. Which of the following best describes a contract? Well, this should be pretty easy. A, an offer and acceptance between competent parties to do a specific legal act. That sounds pretty good. B, a written agreement between competent parties to abstain from doing a specific act. I don't like that one as much. It doesn't have to always be written, right? Anyway, it could be an oral contract. C, an offer and acceptance between competent parties to do or not do a specific legal act for consideration. I like that answer. And then D, a mutual agreement between two or more parties. No, that's not enough. Okay, so let's look at A and C. This gives you another opportunity to learn something about this test and test taking skills. If you look at A and C, they are very close to one another, except that in C gives you a little bit more, right? C gives you everything because it includes consideration also. So it says an offer and acceptance, yes. Competent parties, yes. To do a legal act, yes, for consideration. Anytime you have two answers like that, and one answer gives you more, and what it gives you is also correct, that is always going to be the answer that you choose. Some instructors say just pick the longer answer. That is not correct. You want to pick the longer answer, sure, it is longer, but really the reason why is because it gives you everything, and everything it gave you was correct. So that's what's going to make C the correct answer. 27. A written agreement wherein one person agrees to purchase and another person agrees to sell real property is called what? That's pretty easy, I think. An agency agreement, A. B. An assessment. C. Fiduciary obligation. Or D. A real estate contract. I think that you understand on that one. It's going to be D. A real estate contract. That's pretty simple. That was a gimme. One of those easier test questions. 28. John is an adult. He entered into a contract with Paul, who is 16 years old. When John learned that Paul was a minor, he decided he's going to terminate the contract. Which statement is true? Contracts with minors are automatically void. Contracts with minors are voidable at the option of the adult. The contract is valid and binding on both parties, or the contract is valid and binding only on John. All right, so what do we know about contracts with minors? I think you should know that all contracts with minors are voidable at the option of who? The minor. Do we let the adult out of the contract? No, because what is the purpose of voidable contracts? We're trying to protect the person in the inferior position, the person who is not operating from the all-knowing position, right? So that would be the minor in this case. So let's look for that. Voidable and minor only. So let's look. A, contracts with minors are automatically void. No, they're voidable. And it's not automatic, right? It's at the option of the minor. B, contracts with minors are voidable at the option of the adult. No, that is not it. C, it's valid and binding on both parties. Is that true? No, because who can get out of the contract? The minor. So the minor, it's not valid and binding against the minor, but it is D, valid and binding only against John. All right. 29. A potential buyer speaks to a seller about the purchase of his home. The two agree on a price and a closing date, and the seller also agrees to leave the above ground swimming pool. So this contract is it an implied contract? Is it an unenforceable contract? Is it a void contract, or is it voidable? Well, guys, I want you to remember this. Anytime you're taking this exam and you are thinking somebody speaks to someone else, I want you to always think statute of frauds, because most real estate contracts have to be in writing. And if you speak to and you didn't put it in writing, then what is that? Is that valid, void, or unenforceable? Statute of frauds always goes to unenforceability. And so if you didn't put it in writing, it says right there, they spoke to each other, all right, about it. They never put it in writing. So that is clearly going to be unenforceable. Number 30, when a seller makes a counter offer, which of the following statements is not true? In other words, a lot of times students have difficulties with these questions, but what is not true, right? So it's really easy. Let's find the things that are true. You can go down it and go true, true, true. Which one's not true? And then you're like, that's not true. So then that's going to be the answer. A, it is a partial acceptance of the original offer. Well, already I'm like, that's not true. Counter offer? No, it's not a partial acceptance of the original offer. The original offeror becomes the offeree in the counter offer. Yes. It is a rejection of the earlier offer. Yes, certainly. It may be withdrawn at any time prior to acceptance. Yeah. You're like, true, true, true. Which one are you like, that's not true? That would be A. It's a partial acceptance of the original offer. Okay, well, that's it. Number 3. So we've already gotten through 30 contracts questions? Let me know in the comments. Are you learning something? Are you understanding the material better as I'm going through it? I'm KJ from the KJ Method. We are dedicating ourselves to helping 1,000 agents get licensed by the end of 2025. So what I need from you is for you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and let all of your friends know. It doesn't matter where they are, that we are doing this to help them get licensed too. See you next time.